And we're going to continue from last time. Chapter 2, Logging. The next morning was full of sunshine and birdsong. I could smell the heart of the heat of the afternoon building, those long, honey-like hours in late June when the earth isn't tired of its own warmth yet, but it was crisp and pleasant now. I sat on my bed for a moment, letting my feet dangle from it. I felt angry. The weight of the previous day had coiled up somewhere in my chest, and it felt like a tiny merry-go-round gaining speed. And then I remembered the dream, the clearing, the animals in the night sky. How was I supposed to react to it? Took a shower, ate something without really paying attention, and went out. Anya joined me. We were halfway through the forest when I realized we were walking towards the logging site. I was so focused on my anger and turmoil in my head that I didn't really care where I was going. When I snapped out of it, the sun was shining, the village was far behind me, and I wasn't sure how I'd gotten there. Anya looked around. So, what's the plan? To stop the logging, obviously. We have to stop this logging. I looked around. On my right was the ancient forest. On my left was the freshly torn clearing. Ahead of me, ruining the view, were huge logging machines and a group of people arguing in their shadow. A perfect picture of a battlefield seconds before the first shots are fired. I looked at everyone. There were people there too. The loggers were sitting idly on their tree trunks, sharing cigarettes. The police that stood between them and a colorful group of protesters were clearly uneasy and twitchy. I saw some reporters who were clearly bored because no one was doing anything interesting. The harvesters loomed over the clearing, reeking. I saw a familiar face amongst the protesters. Olga was arguing with a man in his 30s who looked vaguely military. The protesters were clearly conflicted. I had business to do. There, so I went towards them. One of the police officers, young and nervous, said something I didn't fully understand. I ignored him. I tried to walk past him. He stepped in my way and slowly assessed me. Oh, you're one of them. And then he let us go. And then I noticed that someone used the commotion to sneak with us past the police. A girl with disheveled, bleached-out hair. Don't worry, she patted the officer on the arm. It was an awful pickup line anyway. He recoiled. You shouldn't touch me, ma'am. I rolled my eyes and wanted to say something, but I was interrupted. Pat? Some guy called her from the gathering. Could you come here? I need you to show Olga the chart. She sighed, reached to her backpack, and taking out a tablet. And they're at it again, she murmured under her breath, and winked at me. Coming. We went towards the activists. As I walked toward Olga, I heard more and more of the argument. Olga, you can't. The man was speaking with a strong German accent. Pat stood next to him with her tablet. She looked a bit amused. Do not fucking tell me what I can and can't do, Cornell. Olga interrupted. I can, because they're destroying our mother. I can fight with all the means at my disposal, even if that means burning those harvesters to the ground. A slender, green-eyed man was standing near her. He took a few steps back and went towards one of the harvesters, turned his back on us, and pissed on the machine. Olga smirked. Aw, Daniel, you know how to bring the point home. He looked at her confused. Burn the harvesters? Cornell asked. Is this the drought? Olga, are you out of your mind? You know what I mean. We can fight them any way we can, because this is a fucking war, she spat. He sighed. You have never seen real war, and it shows. Nobody is shooting at us, and believe me, we want it to stay that way. We need a peaceful protest. I approached Olga. Hi, we need to talk, I said, approaching Olga. Listen, I'm in the middle of something here. We can talk later. In the middle of something? Well, it looked like I had to bring this something to an end. I looked at them. I looked at them both. Olga with her fury and passion, Cornell with his cold, professional demeanor, and shared, without any reservations, what I felt about the situation. It wasn't a war. Yet. It's not a war. Not yet. My voice rang clear in the silence. But they won't stop unless we make them. Kim shook her head and moved forward. I observed them curiously. Olga, darling, you know I love you, but Cornell really knows what he's doing. Please trust me on that one. They looked at her apologetically. Fuck off, Kim. You didn't even trust me enough to come here on your own when I asked you to. Lisa decided to say something. Lisa looked them straight in the eye. Kim, you want to teach me about violence? She looked them straight in the eye. About fighting oppression? Just because your boss went to what? One mission in Afghanistan? Her Polish was peculiar, kind of mellow. Cornell winced. Lisa, leave Kim alone. He didn't know what to say, and it seemed that the whole discussion would be derailed. I didn't let that happen. Hey guys, the forest? The logging? The protest? Olga unclenched her fists. Cornell looked back at her and chuckled softly. You almost punched me. The conversation was over, at least for the time being. Cornell, together with his cronies, walked towards the reporters while Olga went back to the group of people standing in the shadow of an old oak tree. I felt someone watching me, but when I looked around, I saw nothing suspicious. Then I looked up, and I sensed the source of the presence. The whole forest was watching me. I couldn't explain how I understood it, but I knew it was the truth. The Pusheshka focused its attention on me, waiting, expecting something. The trees looked ancient and eternal, yet they turned out to be so fragile when confronted with high-tech logging equipment and greed. I came here to stop the logging, and after seeing what I'd seen, my resolve only strengthened. Yes, just like Olga said, Anya nodded. Excited. What they're doing is unforgivable. We have to fight. The harvesters were dripping with black oil, and the forest stood tall and serene, full of golden light. It looked like it could protect itself, and I looked at the felled trees, dead, limp, lifeless. As we approached, Daniel pricked his ears. I could have sworn they moved. Hello, fellow humans, he grinned at us. I felt Olga's eyes on me. So what the fuck are you doing here? She asked. She stood there with her arm wrapped around the waist of another woman. It was Lisa. She winked at me and mouthed, It's okay. I couldn't care less about her opinion. I knew why I was there. I'm someone who wants to burn those fuckers. I pointed towards the lurking shapes of the harvesters. Lisa nudged her. See, honey? I told you. It's obvious. Olga rolled her eyes. I had more time to look at her now. She was wearing combat trousers, sandals. There was a small, silver, double-bladed axe hanging on the string around her neck. A labris, a lesbian feminist symbol. She wasn't hiding where she stood. Why was she so jumpy? What exactly is your problem? I was already tired of her attitude. Let's see. The logging company fucker's tearing my forest down. The German son of a bitch undermining my authority. The pig's just waiting for an excuse. My problems are aplenty. She looked at me as she paused. Wouldn't you agree? What's going on here? I asked. Lisa said you could help me. Isn't it obvious? Your grandfather ran away and left his debt to the Pazhushka unpaid. He was supposed to guard her. Since you're here, you can make it right. She seemed to believe it. I looked at her, skeptical, but you seemed to believe it. The question is, she looked at me as she paused, will you do it? Before I could answer, there was a commotion, a change of mood. Olga stiffened and looked over my head. The police were coming. Our way. Officers, Olga said, hissing the words through her teeth. Ma'am, said an officer, whose round face was adorned by a mustache that looked like a shoe brush. Disperse. I got ready to fight. Disperse, repeated the officer. Or what? I stepped forward and looked at him in the eyes. I looked at the cop, disgusted. I could see their faces covered in sweat under their helmets. I could smell the stench of sweat from their bodies lingering on my nose and throat like a putrid, acidic mist. The cop reached for a megaphone. You are trespassing on private property and are a danger to public order. I could feel the adrenaline starting to surge in my veins, and suddenly everything was calm and clear, almost peaceful. I must have moved, but I didn't feel it. And I was right in front of the officer. I lifted my arms and pushed against his chest, hard, and then all hell broke loose. The officer went down, and I started kicking fiercely to keep him there. I don't know what came over me, but I fought like a beast. I took on 3 armored cops, and I smashed them around like bowling pins. I kept enough of a cool head to notice more officers coming, and I retreated. I heard harsh, menacing voices. I heard screams. I heard people running towards one another, the police crashing into protesters. Some of them fought back, some turned and ran, and some sat down on the ground, only to be dragged away. I saw the reporters. The journalists came running, finally finding something worth moving their asses for, but some of the officers quickly stood in their way. There's a quick exchange of profanities, and then the cameras were lowered. There would be no evidence of police brutality in the media, at least not today. Don't do anything rash, said Olga, dragging me away. You've done enough for today. I hoped it was praise. Not a rebuttal, but I didn't dare to ask. When I was on the road to the village and nobody could see me, I stopped. Screamed. The startled flock of birds took off from the trees nearby, filled the air with feathers and movement. In the whole commotion, I lost Anna from my sight. I was alone. So I thought, hey, let me help you, a voice behind me said, and I jumped. A woman looking at me with concern. What happened? I'm fine, I croaked. My throat hurt. She rummaged in her backpack. Here, she said, I have water if you need some. We walked slowly towards the village. We talked. I learned that she was an independent German reporter who'd come here about a month ago. Her name was Erica. So, why are you protesting the logging? She asked after a few minutes of small talk. I came here for personal reasons, And I've dropped right in the middle of some eco-guerrilla campaign, I shrugged. And for many reasons, my interests are aligned with the protesters. I looked at her. Why are you asking? You know why they're cutting down the trees? Because you do know that the logging is done by a government company, the state forests. I didn't know that, I admitted. In fact, I knew very little. I know very little about the situation, I realized, just what others have told me. It all started with spruce bark beetles. Erica looked into her notes and started explaining the whole situation. That year, the beetles' infestation was of catastrophic proportions, and the foresters decided that the only way to stop it and save the rest of the forest was to cut down as many infested trees as fast as possible. Maybe if they remove the dead trees, the infestation wouldn't spread? I tried to find a solution. They might do that, but dead trees are what makes the forest unique. There are 20 times more species living on a dead spruce tree than on a live one. Is cutting down trees the only way to stop the infestation? I asked, confused. Foresters state that this is the only way. Some biologists argue that they're cutting the wrong trees and doing it too late to change anything. But is the logging legal? I wanted to know. Opinions differ, but such massive logging in a UNESCO-listed area might be illegal, Erica answered. Couldn't they just have left the Pashushka alone and let nature take its course? I asked. That's one of the options, Erica admitted. There's a drought, and no one is sure the forest would survive on its own. The situation was more complex than I thought, and Erica's answers did nothing to clear the picture. What was the truth? Stop beating around the bush, please, I asked. I need to know the truth. I'm just trying to do my job, Erica shrugged. I describe all the aspects of a situation to you, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. I shook my head. Why did the situation always have to be so complex? At least I wasn't sure that they were cutting down the trees and the Pashushka needed my help. It was a matter of principle. If I asked you which side had bigger guns, what would you say? I looked at Erica. The government, she answered, and that's why I stand with the protesters. She looked skeptical. You're not the only one feeling helpless, she sighed. I'm just helping you make an informed choice. I always felt so angry when there was too much to process at once. And everything that happened at the logging site, the heat, the stench of the harvesters, the tension between Olga and Cornell, that you could cut with a knife, it almost sent me into some sort of frenzy. What's the matter, she asked. I'm so fucking angry at what I saw. I took a deep breath. Then I remembered what Olga had told me. And they said that I have some family debts to pay. Shook my head. It's a lot to take in, and there was that foul smell back there. She looked at me with a weird expression. What smell? She asked. Of all the things I told you, you ask about a smell? I'm trying to understand what's going on here. I think I know what's going on, she answered slowly. But I don't think that I should be the one explaining it to you. I looked at her and raised my eyebrow questioningly. I thought she'd been hurt by my outburst. You learn in your own time if you stay here long enough, she said, clearly wanting to drop the topic. What does she mean? What do you mean? I asked, getting irritated. I just told you you'll learn in time, or not at all, which would frankly be better. Anyway, gotta run. As I watched her leave, I thought that whatever was my family legacy had surely manifested itself that day. Guess I'd made some progress. I jumped right into the middle of a very tense situation, and at the very least, upset the status quo. I just hope I hadn't made things worse. Anya came back soon after me. I lost sight of you, she said apologetically. I'm glad you made it back in one piece. So, how was your day? Anya asked. I got a few bruises, I said, and thought an explanation was due. I fought with the police. You did? What? Why? You know how it is. Sometimes things just happen. I smiled unsurely. Do you know that the government supported the logging even though it was illegal? I shared in my dismay. Anya just nodded solemnly. Yeah, I read about it. Why didn't you tell me? Well, you have a lot going on. She shrugged. That was all I wanted to share. Just another day in Bia. We sat for a while. You know, there's more to see here than Bielorska, Anya said from over her travel guide. Polgazere, Budi, Terminsky, Cherlonka. There's something interesting in every village. An open-air museum, some kind of folk university, the bison. Maybe you'd like to see something more than logging. Frankly, sightseeing is not why I came here, I said. Right now, the most important thing we should care about is the logging. And how's the search for your roots going? Anya couldn't stay silent for long. It seems my ancestors lived around the forest for a long time, and there are some kinds of debts to be paid. Wow. Anya looked impressed. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think. But if you need something, let me know. I was tired. I just sat there looking through the window. The day had been full on, and I was exhausted. It's quiet now, yet I know deep down inside something isn't right. Run. I'm running through the forest to the logging site. It's getting dark. The light seeps away as though there are millions of tiny punch holes in the sky through which it can escape, and then the darkness starts to pour in. It's thick, oily, snake-like. It wraps around my ankles, caresses my wrists, and then takes my hand and leads me to the site. It's full of maimed bodies. They're all trees. Fallen trees, still alive, still struggling for air. I can smell them. The stench is dark, rancid, putrid. There are monsters at the edge of the forest. They have long, skeletal arms. They are wrapped in glistening, black intestines, and each arm has a wide, gaping mandible full of whirling blades. They snap at me blindly. I feel rage pumping through me like molten lava bubbling from the ground, through my feet, up my legs, through my chest to my head. I suddenly explode. I charge. With a howl of joy and anticipation, I run towards the shapes and start to destroy. I bite off heads, I tear off arms. I am a force of nature, unstoppable. I gasped and bolted upright. I was alone. The sun was setting in the deep, red light. The room looked like it was bathed in blood. My pillow was on the ground, gutted, and the duvet was in shreds. The air was full of tiny feathers dancing in the draft from the window. What the fuck was going on?